Well, good morning. Welcome once again to Elevenses. I'm Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training. This is my twice weekly show, and we have again a packed Elevenses for you today. Show 555. It's Sunday, the 17th of August. Right, a raid has lifted 7 Aprilia motorcycles from a Hythe dealer in Sussex. Police are looking for a masked e-bike rider who managed to crash and injure the 3 children he was carrying as passengers. A UK tourist has ended up on the wrong side of a fight after he pulled a wheelie and left a local woman seriously injured and in a coma. Billy Joel, the singer, he has removed his motorcycle collection from his Long Island motorcycle shop, which is due to shut down shortly. And a new accessory store, bucking the trend, has opened in Southampton. Bus lane access has been granted to Manchester blood bikers after it turned out they were getting tickets for delivering to hospitals. The Kenyan President has ordered authorities to release bikes seized from boda riders. South Africa, delivery riders there are likely to be serving up adverts on their bikes as well as hot food. We'll have a look at another hideous e-bike, this time designed in Denmark, which always had a good reputation for design. A Ninja 300 is set to make a comeback. The Thruxton 400, and no big secret there, has been revealed. MASH, however, are bringing in a heavyweight tourer to the middleweight sector. We'll have a look at that bike. And finally today, we'll have a quick look at what's termed loaded language. It's where language carries with it sort of an emotional loading, and it can influence the way that we think ourselves. And we'll see how it's been used, I think, pretty badly by a couple of journalists, but also possibly by the police. So stay with me till the end of the show. That's at the end of the show. Don't forget, comments, questions, drop me a line. Anything you want to say, I'm always happy to hear from you. I will try to get back to you during the show if I possibly can. Excuse me. And after the show, if I can't do it live. And Paul's looked in. Good morning, Paul. Nice to see you. Right. Okay. So let's move on with the first part of this the show. Now, the other day, while I was looking for something completely different, I managed to turn up an article written by the TV presenter Adrian Chiles. I'm not quite sure how I got to it, but it was titled, "On My Motorbike, I Did a Road Journey in England Avoiding Motorways and Discovered a Whole New Country." Now, it seems that Adrian has only just discovered that roads actually exist outside of the motorway network, even if all you did find, it seems, were A roads that I tend to avoid myself. And I do honestly find this quite baffling. Maybe it's because I've always been fascinated by maps. You know, when I was a kid, my granddad actually gave me the ex-Africa Corps compass that he had acquired in the Desert War in World War II. And he taught me to orient myself using OS maps. Now, as a courier, I always carry maps, which is why I often got long distance jobs, actually. The controllers knew that I'd get there and back again, unlike many of the others who seem to get lost as soon as they were outside the north and south circular roads. And thanks to maps, I also have found some cracking cross-country routes, both in the UK and abroad too. So, on top of this, equally baffling, I find it that group rides often follow such dull, busy main roads. Some years ago, I was on an organised ride around Kent, and the guy who organised it put a lot of work into it, but he picked the most heavily trafficked roads in the country. There's no scenery to enjoy, just hundreds of lorries that he insisted on overtaking. By mid-ride, I'd had enough, and I just went home on some almost totally traffic-free roads through beautiful countryside, just using quiet B roads and some unclassified lanes. It was a lovely ride. I recently did a journey from Hastings to Oxford on non-motorway routes, mostly quieter A roads, some Bs, a few back lanes. Probably took me 45 minutes longer than the motorway route, but it actually saved about 40 miles of of driving, and that was the best part of a gallon of fuel in the car. And it also took us past a lovely cafe where we had a bite to eat at what would have been a fraction of the price at a faceless service area serving bland food. But I talk about this from time to time. And people say, "But I might get lost." Well, yeah, you might, but does it matter? These days, people will have mobile phones with mapping apps. You just put your destination in, and then you just set off. You just go wherever you want. Whatever road looks good, the app will keep rerouting you until you find your way to your destination. It's just a case of, enjoy the roads that you take. You'll probably arrive a bit later than you would have done on the quickest route, but you'll still arrive and probably a lot less stressed too. Anyway, if you want to read Adrian Charles' report, you can find it here. As I say, I do find it slightly baffling. All right, so moving on to the e-course. Now, I have decided that I am going to make a couple of changes to the e-course. There is a reason for this. The plan originally was to run them monthly and hope that everybody would stay in step so that I would only have to check sort of 1 week's work, as it were, as a time. And I could just look at everybody's work and it would save everybody a lot of effort. But unfortunately, what's happened, of course, is that people have signed up and then they've got out of step. Some people finished it on schedule, others have taken several months to get to the same point. So with everybody working at the same pace, I think it's what I'm going to actually do is open them up to people whenever you want to join. You can join and you do it at your own pace, and there's no necessity to stick to the sort of once a week schedule. Anyway, it won't be everybody's cup of tea in e-course, as I said before, but if you're interested, you can sign up via this QR code, which will take you straight there. Right, 79 quid. So basically less than a fry up on your weekly cafe run. Now, let's move on quickly to the weather. You might have noticed it was a little bit hazy last day or so. That was apparently due to wildfires that have been burning in Europe, and the direction of the wind had carried it over the UK. But you might have noticed if you're on the East Coast, the skies have remained fairly clear. That is when you could see them through the cloud, because what's happened is the high pressure zone has shifted somewhat to the north. It's now sitting right over the north of England, and this pulled in some cooler and cloudier weather down eastern coasts, and that means it will remain cloudy and cooler over much of eastern England today. The sun's actually broken through here in London, but the further west you go, further towards the sort of sunnier parts, the sky will clear, the temperatures will rise, and it will climb up into the mid-20s. Not quite as hot as perhaps as people were expecting, but still warm. Sunny too for much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, but it will be windy in the southwest. Now, overnight, that cloud will spread back from the North Sea across much of England, and that will bring some early showers into the northeastern England. But as the day goes on, as the sun gets up, the cloud will break to bring increasing amounts of sunshine, especially again away from the east of the country, where it will be warmest. But the weather front will move into Cornwall towards dawn, and that could bring some heavy and thundery showers across the southwest during the day, and it will remain windy down there. Now, Tuesday looks cooler for most, mostly cloudy skies, a few scattered showers during the day for the southwest, and they could turn potentially thundery and heavy in places. Okay, so mixed bag, mostly dry, but some rain around, not too bad for riding. Now, into the news. Now, the first story is that a motorcycle dealer in Hythe, Dearden Motorcycles, they have been hit by the theft of 7 Aprilia sports bike worth nearly £90,000. Thieves apparently smashed their way into the store in the early hours of Friday, and they took bikes valued between £12,500 and £23,000. Now, the police responded quickly after the owner was alerted by the alarm, but the bikes had already been loaded into a white van. They were gone in minutes. The motorcycle showroom was open for business on Monday, but the main sales area was apparently inaccessible to customers. The sales manager said the theft was the work of an organised crime rather than petty thugs. Now, in Northumbria, police are attempting to trace this masked rider. I don't know how far they'll get based on that particular picture, but he crashed in the Kenton area whilst carrying 3 children as passengers on this electric e-bike, a Talaria. The children were reported to be seriously injured and were hospitalised, and this happened on the evening of June the 13th. So it's quite a while ago now, but if anybody saw anything, naturally the police would like to know. Now, in Thailand, a British tourist was mobbed whilst a crowd gathered following the fact that his collision with a female Thai rider. He was apparently pulling a wheelie along a road in Pattaya, and he left Jurirat Petroska, 49 years old, seriously injured. She had to be given CPR at the scene, and she was rushed to hospital where she remains unconscious and in a coma. Now, the police questioned the rider at the scene, a British tourist, and he allegedly blamed the injured woman for the accident. And this caused something of a riot, with the locals attacking him and his friends. And he was actually injured and had to be taken to hospital for treatment himself. Now, it appears that he also withheld his name, as a police spokesman reported that he hadn't handed over his passport. Police have said that if it's proven he was riding dangerously, he could be prosecuted. Now, sadly, health problems are forcing the music icon Billy Joel to close his motorcycle shop, 20th Century Cycles. Joel has long been known for his passion for bikes, and he's maintained an extensive collection of vintage machinery at his shop in Oyster Bay, Long Island, which opened in 2010. Now, it's reported that the collection of motorcycles, 75 plus of them, which include Harley Davidsons, Triumphs, Ducatis, and Moto Guzzi's, some date back to the 1940s. They will be auctioned later this year and have already been moved to from the shop, presumably to the auction hall. Shop itself does remain open for now. It's selling off any remaining new, used and vintage motorcycle parts, but it too is set for closure next month. Now, as always at this point, could I ask you to do the usual thing and press the buttons down there, subscribe, and if you are a subscriber, just like the video too, because every click helps other motorcyclists discover my content, or simply do it the old-fashioned way. Tell your buddies about Elevenses, and then they can tune in and watch on catch up. Now, the newsletter, I've just given it a little mild makeover today. You can get a list by signing up to my newsletter. All my latest riding articles, they're always free. Links will then arrive in your inbox once a week. And you can subscribe at survivalskills.substack.com, or the QR code will take you straight to it. No spam. If you don't like the content, of course, you can unsubscribe at any time. Sadly, I have had 4 unsubscriptions this week. I don't know why so many in one go, but hopefully a few more new signups will replace those missing people. Now, bucking the trend of closing motorcycle outlets, Sports Bike Shop, who are a major retailer of motorcycle helmets, clothing and accessories, they have opened a new store, or are about to open a new store. It will open tomorrow, Monday, August the 18th, in Southampton. Now, it'll be the 11th retail store run by the group, and it will be found on the Southampton Trade Park, and it was said to offer a wide selection of goodies, and different types of leather, textiles, heated gear, armor, as well as clothing and accessories. There's also a try or on before you buy service. Now, this is an interesting one because basically what it means is you can actually order something from the sports bike shop website, then have it delivered to the store next day, and then you can pop in and then you can try it on before purchasing. So basically, it saves having it delivered and then having to go through the rigmarole of packing it back up and returning it. So that's Sports Bike Shop in Southampton. Now, this is an interesting story. It emerged that volunteer riders for the Greater Manchester Blood Bike Service were being fined for using bus lanes and a bus gateway to access Manchester hospitals. It's not entirely clear whether they had to use those access routes or whether they just used them to get there quicker. I don't know. But anyway, Labour MP for Witherington, Jeff Smith, he has secured an exemption for the blood bike service, which carries medical supplies, including blood and vaccines. The council regulations say only buses, bicycles, black cabs, emergency and authorised vehicles are allowed to use these restricted lanes. And since the blood bikes weren't classified as either authorised or emergency vehicles, the riders were getting fixed penalty notices, which cost £70, reducing to £35 if you pay in 3 weeks. Mr. Smith apparently raised the role of these volunteer bikers and their work with the City Council, and he said, quote, "I am grateful that they have agreed that blood bikers will now be exempted from these rules while doing their vital delivery, so riders can deliver crucial medical supplies to our hospitals as easily as possible." Why they weren't included? Well, obviously they're not official emergency vehicles, and I suspect nobody thought about them, and I suspect nobody thought to ask. As simple as that until now. So good to see that changed. Now in Kenya, the President, William Ruto, he has instructed that motorcycles that have been seized by police from boda riders in recent months and which are not linked to criminal cases should be released back to their owners within the week. Now this aims to help thousands of locals regain their livelihoods, and at the same time it's argued it's also a political gesture because he has a lot of support already amongst the riders, and this will increase it. Now President Ruto, he says that boda operators are a legitimate business and that the taxi bike operators should be respected as such, but at the same time he has called on them to observe the law while carrying out their work. The President's also announced that the government has negotiated with an electric mobility company called Spiro to make affordable electric motorcycles available to boda riders. He says these electric motorcycles will actually cost Kenyan shillings 95,000 each, which is actually about half the price of an equivalent vehicle that uses petrol. Now, the boda operators will be required to put up a deposit of 9,500 Kenyan shillings. I'm not quite sure how much that is in sterling, and then make a daily payment of 180 Kenyan shillings. Now, head to South Africa, and you may well find that delivery riders will not simply be delivering your food, but also adverts on their bikes. OpenServe, a provider of telecommunications infrastructure, has announced a strategic alliance, a partnership to you and me, of course, with Motion Ads, with the aim of placing third-party adverts on the delivery boxes. Now, Motion Ads says it gives delivery drivers an additional income stream. Each driver also receives training to promote safe driving and is equipped with a high visibility wrapping. I wonder what that might be, which enhances their safety at night. The company policy requires them to send weekly video updates of their bikes to Motion Ads. Now, personally, I'm just waiting for the moment when somebody decides that a delivery box is the perfect place to fit an illuminated LED billboard. I can just see those zipping through the traffic in London at night. Right, okay. So that's the news. On to some more specific news about motorcycles. Now, first of all, just a little bit of extra news about the BSA Bantam 350. You'll recall that was launched a couple of weeks back. The first thing is that the Hythe Roadster Mark II, which is the bike on which this bargain Bantam is actually based, that's just been released in India. The Bantam here costs £3,500. Guess what the local price for the Hythe is? It's £1,900. I mentioned that there was a big rollout of the bike to influencers on YouTube who all rushed to put their videos up first. But it seems to have worked, as I suggested it probably would. The Bantam apparently is sold out in the UK. Now, one bike that isn't sold out because it's not actually been built yet is this one. It's the Ichiban from Denmark. It's designed around the Japanese concept kanso, apparently, which means to reduce clutter. And it was revealed in Berlin at an event for electric bikes recently. Now, it's an early prototype. It's said to have limited functionality, but it's promised to come with 45 kilowatts of power from dual motors, and for some reason it has a temporary boost feature with the bizarre name of Godzilla mode. Now, astonishingly, despite the fact that the bike isn't actually functional yet, and there's no promises either for any kind of production model anytime soon, let alone a price, it's claimed that they've already got in excess of 2,000 pre-orders, which I honestly find rather difficult to believe. And anyway, let's hope they remove the slick tires before they put those bikes out on the road, if they ever make it. One bike that probably will appear is the this one. Now, Kawasaki sold the original Ninja 300 globally from 2013 to 2017. It was a successful bike. I rode one briefly. It was quite a lot of fun. They replaced it then with the more powerful Ninja 400 in Europe and North America, and that bike went on to have quite a lot of success in the World Superbike racing, actually. And that bike, in turn, made way for the still more powerful Ninja 500, launched in 2024. So, as the bike has grown, it's actually left a bit of a hole behind it, hasn't it? And there are riders out there who want a less expensive, less powerful, and for many smaller riders, a crucial part of the equation, really, a lighter machine. So the Ninja 300 has continued on sale in India and some Asian markets, but it looks now like an updated model with a new triple three-way catalyst, which meets the latest emission standards, and some fresh styling, will make a comeback from 2026. Now, the 296cc liquid cooled parallel twin engine produces a sort of decent enough 39 horsepower at 11,000 rpm and 26.1 newton meters of torque at 10,000 rpm. So that's a revvy little thing, and that is slightly down on the older model. Now, the bike also lacks the latest electronic bells and whistles. It hasn't got any stability control. It just gets non-switchable dual channel ABS and a slipper clutch. But it does get a semi-digital instrument console, joy of joy, with a analog speedometer. I do wish a few other manufacturers have all jumped onto the sort of like the tiny screens would revert to this setup. It really is much more readable. Another machine getting a fresh set of clothes is this one. You probably have recognized it because Triumph haven't been shy about leaking stories about this. It's the Thruxton 400. And of course, it takes their now proven, they say, 400 single platform and dresses it in the same style as the Speed Triple 1200 RR. So that means that low half fairing, a round headlamp, clip-on handlebars, bar end mirrors, and a removable seat cowl. Oh, and you get a slim tail lamp. The striped paint scheme is said to enhance its racing appeal, and of course the lower bars create that more forward leaning position. Now, 400 engine remains the same and puts out 40 2 horsepower at 9,000 RPM and 27.5 pound-feet, 37.5 Newton meters of torque. So it's actually a little bit pokier than the 300 Ninja we've just seen. 2 fewer teeth on the rear sprocket. That's said to increase the top speed over the Speed 400, although it might reduce acceleration, I presume. Suspension gets slightly more travel. Bike gets those 17-inch alloy wheels too. I'll give you a zoom-in picture. You can actually see them. Well, no, you can't really. Not really. Anyway, that's the bike. Anything else? 31.2-inch, 795mm seat height. Weight at 403 pounds, 183 kilos. Keeps it reasonably manageable. And it's said to offer nimble handling, confidence, inspiring stability. No word on price yet, but it has been announced in India that it would retail at the equivalent of £2,300. Now that's slightly above the Speed 4's local pricing, so it seems possible. So let's hope Motorcycle News are wrong, because their writers expect the Thruxton to appear in the UK at around £6,500. That would make it 1,500 quid more than the 5k Speed 400, which is itself already beginning to look a bit pricey when you look at the BSA Bantam 350 and its price. So that will be interested to see how that gets managed. Now, the middleweight tourer market has been pretty much ignored by all the manufacturers since Honda killed off the Deauville back in 2013. Now that bike, with its integrated panniers and the sort of fairly robust, if rather unexciting 700cc V-twin engine, it was a reasonable seller right through the late 90s and into the early 2000s. But sales did start to decline because riders started to switch to adventure bikes, which you could still fit panniers on. And it led to the machine being dropped from Honda's lineup. So there has been a hole. Now Mash Motorcycles want to fill it, literally, with this particular machine. Now, Mash are better known for retro and classic style motorcycles with small single-cylinder engines, but this particular 750cc touring bike has now been released in Europe. It's the GT 750. Now, it is based on a Chinese machine, the Yedi Motor KR 750, which apparently is aimed at the police market in China. And it's been rebranded and launched by Mash, which is a French-based outfit. Now, the motorcycle was unveiled at the Lyon Motorcycle Show alongside a sporty K750, and it's said to signal a shift in Mash's products from sort of neo-retro styling to something rather more modern, performance-oriented. So what's underneath the bodywork there? Well, it's a 730cc inline twin cylinder double overhead cam engine, although you'll notice that those sort of grey, I suppose they're bash plates for when you drop the bike. They do make it look just a little like a BMW, and I'm sure that's actually no coincidence. The double overhead cam engine produces a reasonably sturdy 73 horsepower, 50 pound-feet of torque. It's a double beam aluminium alloy frame. The front forks are upside down, said to be adjustable. The rear end gets a monoshock. Brakes are by Brembo at the front, single rear disc, unbranded. Bosch supplies the ABS, and the tyres are Michelin Road 6. Now, fuel capacity is a rather daft, in my opinion, anyway, 24 litres, that's over 5 UK gallons. Now, even if the bike manages a miserable 50 mpg, that's a range of over 250 miles, and you can work it out for yourself. If it manages 60, that's 300 miles. Now, unless the bike is upholstered like an armchair, I would imagine that most riders will be long since ready for a backside brake before they empty the tank. But the downside of all that fuel, of course, is it adds mass. The bike is definitely a heavyweight too for a middleweight, even with that alloy frame, with the integrated luggage and with all that sizable weather protection up front. It already weighs in 275 kilograms fueled up. That is over 600 pounds. The other heavyweight aspect of this bike is the price. It's not it's an unproven Chinese machine. And in France, it sells for 11,999 euros. That's approximately £10,480 at current exchange rates. Now, for a comparison purpose, the Tiger Sport 660, which admittedly comes with no luggage, but that is an 80 horsepower triple. That weighs 206 kilograms, 454 pounds, fueled up with 17 litres of fuel. So it's significantly lighter. And it is also lighter on cash as well. You'll save almost £1,400 to buy that. Even BMW's F900 XR is cheaper than this bike. Now, to be honest, the reliability of Mash's smaller machines isn't exactly stellar. If you go onto user forums, you'll see quite a lot of people sort of fiddling around trying to fix misfires and things like that. So, if you're brutal about it, I really can't see them shifting very many of these machines unless they represent a serious upgrade to build quality. But I really suspect also that somebody is actually trying to make a lot of money out of these bikes. Whether they arrive in the UK, I don't know. Can't tell you that. Kevin's looked in. He says, watch the full show later. Good morning. And Sue says, I got kicked out when I tried liking the show. Sorry to hear that, Sue. Good to see you back. Anyway, thank you all for looking in. And thanks to everybody else who hasn't introduced themselves. And today we're going to move on to the final section of the show, which is the in-depth bit. And I'm going to look at loaded language. Now, you may recall that if you're watching a recent Elevenses, I mentioned a rider who'd been clocked at a record 158 miles per hour in Suffolk. Now, not surprisingly, the police were looking to track him down. And not surprisingly, the story got churned out on other websites too. But I was rather surprised to read how one writer treated it. This is how he saw it. Quote, as a motorcyclist, one can't help but feel a little bit emotionally torn when stories like this pop up. On the one hand, rock on, riding 158 miles per hour on a motorcycle is kind of cool, you rebel you. If the offender turns out to be a rock star or a bad boy novelist or the like, we'll inevitably lift this behaviour up as an exemplar of badassery. Well, I have to say, I read that and I wouldn't say chin hit the floor, but it was kind of raised eyebrows at least. Now, expressing admiration for extreme speeding by suggesting it's rebellious and cool is frankly not cool. The idea of lifting this behavior up as an exemplar of badassery or rock star bad boy novelist, it all suggests that we should be admiring, vicariously living out this kind of rebellious behavior, even if we wouldn't engage in it ourselves. Now, the writer does present a counter argument in his second paragraph when he wrote, on the other hand, it's stupid and dangerous, and the motorcyclist should face some serious punishment. If you want to murder yourself on a motorbike, that's fine, go ahead, but on a public road, a motorcycle traveling at 158 miles per hour is a missile. But frankly, it's too late. Even though journalists' standards have plummeted in recent years, the overall statement is entirely problematic when you consider that there are standards for reporting of crime and dangerous behavior. It could be considered, and I would certainly consider that statement as normalizing or glorifying speeding. And as far as I know, that goes against the UK media reporting guidelines. I haven't actually bothered to check them, but I'm pretty sure I'm right on that. And I think they certainly have a responsibility as publishers to avoid portraying dangerous or criminal behavior as acceptable like this. And I'm surprised that the magazine itself published it, even if the writer wrote it. But unfortunately, this is, far from unusual behaviour. Now, just a couple of days later, literally, I read, quote, the all-new front-wheel lift control system on the 2025 Triumph Speed Triple 1200 RS ensures being a hooligan is more accessible than ever. And the writer doesn't just glorify wheelies. He continues, quote, show me a motorcyclist who doesn't like wheelies at least some level, and I'll show you someone who's pretending to ride motorbikes. Um, well, again, the writer did go on to confirm that he tested this system on a track, but he's not just glorifying the thrill factor of what is a road bike, but he's using social pressure to encourage riders here to conform to this hooligan image by suggesting that if we don't enjoy wheelies, we're not a genuine motorcyclist. Now, for the record, I have never bothered with wheelies. I always felt the stoppies were a far more effective demonstration of a useful skill. Now, you may say it's just words. Many people will, I know that. And you may say that it's designed to sell content to readers, and that's also true. But there is significant research-based evidence that suggests that glorifying speeding on the road on social media like this can influence others to encourage in similar behaviors, and that it can be linked to real-life speeding. Now, in few years ago, a Dr. Apanam Yaina, he's a healthcare professor at Harvard Medical School, he looked at some data from Montgomery County in Maryland, and he found that over a 5-year period, there was a spike in speeding after films from the Fast and Furious franchise were released. In fact, on the weekends immediately after one of the Fast and the Furious movies was released, speeding tickets were up almost 20%. Now, I should point out that those findings are a correlation, not a direct cause. There was no direct proving that people watching the movie went out and sped, but it did. It was suggestive, and he did actually run something of a control by looking at the weeks when the Hunger Games movie series were released, and he found that on those weekends there was no increase in speeding. So there is some, at least, weight to the claim. But others can be guilty of hyperbole too. So another story that popped up on my newsfeed, it was a busy week on my newsfeed. According to a local newspaper, and I quote, police have used a drone to catch 3 motorcyclists in the middle of a street race on a busy road in Hedge End. Now, for those of you who don't know the area, and it's certainly not an area I know well, Hedge End is just on the other side of the M27 from Southampton down on England's south coast. And the report says that Hampshire police have been stepping up patrols in Hedge End in the summer months due to reports of increased antisocial behaviour, including a number of vehicle-related crimes. So, did Hampshire police really stop a street race between motorcycles? That's what the newspaper claimed. So I looked up what a street race actually is defined as, and you can define it as an illegal racing activity using any kind of vehicle. And the definition in the dictionary suggested that 2 examples are side-by-side drag racing. You see those sometimes in Asia, and also these kind of point-to-point cannonball runs that were, of course, the film of the same name, timing people from destination to, or start point to destination. So, having done that, I looked for the original statement by Hants Police, and I did track that down. And it, as I say, seems that they were out responding to these antisocial behaviour reports from locals. And they said, quote, we are pleased to say it was a relatively peaceful evening on our local roads. However, the drone did locate a small number of speeding vehicles. And they went on to say, quote, 3 motorbikes that were racing each other in Woodhouse Lane were followed by drone and stopped, dealt with by local officers. Racing. That's a very specific term, isn't it? Or was it a small group who were out together and over the limit? Now, they didn't give you how much they were over the limit by. So it may not have been very much. It may have been over it by a significant amount. We simply don't know. But when they say they were dealt with by local officers, I rather suspect it was a fairly minor offence. I mean, it didn't even say specifically that they'd been issued with tickets. They certainly hadn't been arrested from the sound of that. It sounds like they were it may even just have been a roadside chat. We don't know. But if it had been some kind of illicit racing event, I suspect there would have been a lot more than stopped and dealt with in the press statement. I suspect it would have been a lot stronger worded than that. So this is an example of how loaded language, the sort of words and phrases that are packed with some emotional weight that can be positive or negative, they're not designed to inform. They're designed to persuade or manipulate. They're designed to, in this case, to make it sound like the police are doing a good job out there. And this is the danger with using loaded language. It nudges us towards a particular conclusion, doesn't actually provide us with facts. Anyway, that's enough for today on this one. If you want the link to that, the Fast and the Furious study, you can find an essay about it here. I'll just put that up now in the comment stream. So there it is. It's going up as I speak, and you should be able to see that any moment now. And that brings me to the conclusion of today's show. Again, if you've got anything that you want to say, any comments about any of the content we've covered, I'm always very happy to hear what you have to say. I suspect the final item there might nudge a few people to respond to it. Anyway, that's it for today. Don't forget, before you go, if you do enjoy these shows, do consider supporting me via my Ko-fi page. Being a one-off supporter or even a monthly subscriber helps me keep producing my shows and writing my better biking articles. So quick shout out to last week's supporters and subscribers, Brian Dex, who bought a download copy of Survival Skills, and had a little bit of a chat with him actually online. He's a motorcycle instructor himself, does the IEM, also is DAS qualified, and he also has some interesting jobs. He audits road safety programs or something. Anyway, Christine, Ian R, Claire, Living Martial Arts, Johan, Mad Cockney, and Anonymous have all helped me out as well. So if you want to join in, then sign up over on the Ko-fi site. It's where all my articles are posted, and there is an archive there of over 1,000 articles that you can access. That's it for today. Thanks to everybody who's looked in, either live. Oh, I forgot to put the link up. There it is. Thanks to everybody who's looked in live. Thanks to everybody who will look in on catch up. You've been watching Elevenses. I'm Kevin Williams of Survival Skills Rider Training, and I will be back with another roundup of news, views, and some better biking tips at 11 AM on Wednesday. And if you are out there enjoying a ride on your bike today, make sure that you stay shiny side up, and then I will see you in the next show.